What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Here's another video from the archives. Please don't forget to click the like button and comment below because that really does help our channel, so I'll be grateful if you can just do that one little favor. And as well, don't forget to subscribe below and also click the notification bell. That's super important if you want to receive notifications of all future new content, because don't worry, there's new content always coming as well. So enjoy the video, and as always, remember, remain intensely curious. Okay, I'm going to begin this video off screen, but I'll eventually come back into frame. But I want to talk about today how obviously the big news is what's going on in Cyprus with the European Union, the ECB, and the IMF attempting basically to steal money from the savings accounts. Cyprus citizens are actually those that have money in the Cyprus banking system, which includes a whole bunch of Russian oligarchs as well, to the tune of 9.9%. If the account was in excess of 100,000 euros, and to the tune of, 6.7% if it was less than 100,000 euros. Now, there have been different iterations of that. Some people say that they're going to adjust it, so if you had an account in a Cyprus banking system of less than 20,000 euros, that they might not take anything, and then adjust the 6.75% theft to accounts between 20 and 100,000 euros, and then they might actually even up the amount of theft to 15.6% for those accounts over 100,000 euros. Now, I'm using the word theft because that's exactly what it is. I mean, I know that even the Cyprus president said, we are not for this tax. This is not a tax. This is not, the media discusses it as a tax. And that is just a way for them to try to misrepresent what it is, which is straight theft. Now, if I were to represent this theft here in 50 pieces of silver, which we have here, so for accounts over 100,000 euros, so a 10% theft then would be these 5 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is what they would steal. Now, if you go up to 15.6% theft, then that amounts to about 8 of the 50 pieces of silver. So this is what they're going to steal from your original stack of these 2 stacks, okay? Now, people are saying that, and it is something that is despicable, but I'm going to actually put a link to a YouTube video below, so if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it in the video description, where they interviewed citizens of Cyprus, and they called this potential theft, quote-unquote, outrageous, quote-unquote, unacceptable, quote-unquote, really unfair, and quote-unquote, the worst possible action they could have taken. Now, while that is all true, and even though the Cyprus parliament voted against this theft, so now the EU and the ECB and the IMF are scrambling as far as what to do because it hasn't gone into place. The fact that this came up and that people were outraged by this is a very good opportunity for people to understand that everyone in the world is being Cyprus. So hypothetically, let's consider that this eventually goes through and that people are outraged, because people are outraged at the potential of this going through, okay? Now, what could be a silver lining in the cloud that comes out of this potentially despicable act in Cyprus that the IMF bankers and the EU and Germany want to impose upon the citizens of Cyprus is the fact that a lot of people are talking about how shocked they are that bankers would execute such blatant theft and robbery of people's hard-earned savings from just taking a percent of their savings, just stealing it basically to bail out the banks and give it to the failing banks in Cyprus. Now, I've been trying to raise the point for over 7 years now, since 2006. I've been trying to get people to understand that the whole world has been Cyprus. So we've all been Cyprus already if we consider that this theft of Cyprus savings accounts might go through. So if it goes through and people are outraged by this theft, they should realize that we have been Cyprus all along. Because let's be real, what inflation is not what they teach you in school. Because it's not what they say that inflation is part of the natural economic cycle. That is pure rubbish. Inflation is theft, if we're being real about it. So I've actually sat down with friends of mine and explained this, and they say, well, inflation is just, it's natural. That's just, everyone expects it. Just everyone expects it. No, it is not natural. It's rubbish, because they will always say it's part of the natural economic cycle. But look, when we didn't have fiat currency that has an intrinsic value of 0, what happened? When you had a gold standard in America from 1800 to 1933, you basically had a steady period of deflation, which means if your money was represented by, say, this amount, right, of silver, and this was the purchasing power, that the next year this stack might have added some more, and you would actually have more purchasing power. You had actually steady period deflation, but the price index was basically the same in 1933 as it was in 1800, because you had heavy, massive inflation during a period of civil war when they abandoned the gold standard and went to this rubbish system we had today of just fiat currency backed by nothing. So that kind of evened out the deflation. Now, the other lie that bankers say, there's so many lies that bankers tell that people believe today, it's unbelievable. The other lie they say, all the Keynesians will say, like Greenspan or Bernanke will say, you can't have steady, sustainable economic growth without being able to print limitless amounts of currency using fiat currency like we have today. That is ludicrous, because if you're a historian and you look at that period between 1800, over 100 years, to the early 1900s in America, you had steady, sustainable, significant economic growth under a widespread period of deflation, because you had a gold standard where the money actually held its value and actually became stronger over that time period, over many of those years during that time period. So again, that is an utter lie. So just because people are charming, it's unbelievable that people believe political leaders. I hear some people have affinity because they say they're I can be here smiling, lying in your face too. Look, I can put on a smile and say, oh, don't buy one of these. You should keep all money in paper fiat currency. It is safe. And that's how gullible, naive people are. Just because they have a charming person telling them something, they don't think that they can be a sociopath and perpetually lying to them. And they never take the time to actually read. Because as I say in all my videos, I always say, do not blindly follow me, but do your own research. Because if you do your own research and just don't believe, just don't do as you're told by leaders, you will eventually come to the truth. Okay, so let me try to compare what's going on, as you can see in the screen behind me, with the whole Cyprus situation and inflation, because it's basically the equivalent thing, just two different mechanisms that bankers use to steal from people. So in just the end of last year, beginning of this year, the yen lost 24% of its purchasing power. It was devalued by 24%. During the 1997 financial crisis, the Korean won was devalued in a little over a year time, from November of 1997 to early 1998, by 53%. This is 53% after the Korean government said they would not allow the Korean won at the beginning of the crisis. They said, to appease people, to soothe people's fears, they said, we will not allow the won to devalue by more than 25%. That's what they promised. So this is why I say you can never trust bankers, and they let the won devalue 53%. Now, is this all foreseeable? Of course it is. People don't get it. People get so outraged at what's going on in Cyprus today, but they should be outraged by the theft going on, by inflation every year, what the central bankers are doing. Now, I wrote this book in 2008, right? And this is what I said at the beginning, because I released this book in January 2008 on page 196, 197 of my book. I said, we can be assured that in 2008, that the destruction of monetary value in both Europe and the United States will occur. The only question that remains is which currency will fall at a faster pace relative to the other. If the situation plays out like I believe it will, with both the dollar and the euro losing value, but the euro losing value at a greater clip than the dollar, when smart investors finally realize that no fiat currency is safe. Remember, I was telling you this 5 years ago. No fiat currency is safe. I believe that the investors, at least the savvy ones, will begin to dump the euro and the pound as well. And of course, just like today, hardly anybody listened to me, unfortunately. And what happened to the euro and the pound sterling at the end of 2008? It devalued, the bankers devalued it, and it lost nearly 25% of its worth in a few months at the end of 2008. Just crazy, right? So let me explain why this is the same as theft. So the good thing in Cyprus is at least it gives me an opportunity to finally try to get people to understand that inflation is theft. Because imagine that your savings account is represented by this amount. Now, what happened to the Japanese people that were holding yen at the end of 2012 through the first couple months of 2013? They lost about 24%. Let's round it up to 25%. People are outraged. The bankers of Cyprus want to steal this amount, 5. Okay, you lose 25% if this represents your savings account. If you're a Japanese citizen holding yen, you lost 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's actually 12 and a half, but let's round it up to 13. Okay, so you lost this amount. It was basically stolen from you by bankers through inflation. If you were holding euros or pound sterling in 2008, you lost the same amount in just a few months at the end of 2008. So my big question is, why are not people more outraged? Isn't losing this much more outrageous than losing this much? But yet people seem to be so outraged by this theft because they don't understand the various mechanisms of theft that bankers utilize against the people. Sure, people in Cyprus are still losing, having their savings accounts stolen and pillaged and raped by bankers through inflation. On top, they're taxing them another 10%. Or not, sorry, I shouldn't even use that. I told people not to use that word tax. They're stealing another 10%. But in Korea, from November 1997 just to the first month, a couple months of 1998, a little over a year, people lost, if this represented your savings account through inflation, 53% was gone. So you lost this entire stack, unbelievably, plus a couple more off the top of the second one. So shouldn't you be more outraged by losing this much than just by losing this much? It makes no sense to me. So that's what people have to understand. Inflation is theft. And whether or not the situation goes down in Cyprus where savings accounts are stolen from, everyone has been Cyprus since the beginning of their birth. So as I just explained, because inflation is theft, so everyone in Japan, people are furious at what's going on in Cyprus today because that 10% theft. Well, you had a 24% theft in just the past few months. Guess what? You've been Cyprus. And for South Koreans during the financial crisis in 1997, guess what? You've been Cyprus because you lost more than double of what the proposed theft is in Cyprus today. For all people in the EU or all holders of the euro or the pound sterling at the end of 2008, what happened when you lost nearly 25% of the valuation of your currency? Guess what? Yes, you've been Cyprus. So people should be far more outraged, even if this doesn't go through. This banker theft, the Cyprus savings account does not go through. People should be far more outraged at what's going on every day, every year for the time we have been born, because we've been Cyprus since the time we've been born. Now people may say, okay, I understand the example over 80 years from 1913 to 2013. That is insane that bankers stole that much money out of everyone's savings account. Because remember that little stack that people are outraged about? Shouldn't you be outraged about the bankers stealing like multiples that amount? Where that is what's insane, is that people aren't outraged by this. Now they say, oh well, inflation is only 2 or 3% per year, so it's really not that bad as that 10% one-time swoop that the bankers are proposing in Cyprus. That is because the bankers are lying to you. How do you know a banker is lying? Their lips are moving, okay? What did they tell you in Cyprus in July of 2011, less than 18 or a little more than 18 months ago? They said the three major banks in Cyprus, the Bank of Cyprus, what are the other two names? The Hellenic Bank and Marfin Lakey. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that second bank right. They said they all passed the stress test and were okay. You know, so people that are saying that inflation is only 2 or 3%. You really believe that? Go to shadowstats.com. In America, in just the past few years, shadowstats.com will show you that the official government statistic of inflation is a lie, and that the rates of inflation have been upwards of 11 to 13% even in just the past several years in America. So that is what, that theft alone is bigger than the 10% that people are getting outraged over in Cyprus. So you have to understand that, you know, when people say, I've heard this too, and especially I've heard this in America, they say, it can't happen in my country. Oh, I understand it can happen in Cyprus, but it's not going to happen in my country, right? So that is also ludicrous. They say, oh, well, my money's safe. Citigroup passed the stress test, and Bank of America passed the stress test. What did I just tell you? These banks, 18 months ago, the bankers said that the biggest banks in Cyprus passed the stress test, and all of a sudden now they need to steal money, 10% of everyone's savings account, to bail these banks out. So are you really going to believe these lying bankers and what they're telling you, that everything's okay? They say, oh, well, even if they're not okay, and even if Citigroup is bankrupt and Bank of America is bankrupt, and they're all lying about the asset valuations on their balance sheets, and they all have more debt than their asset, the worth of their cumulative assets, it doesn't matter, because the FDIC insures my deposits for $250,000. Do you know when did they do this? Remember, I told you that the euro and the pound sterling lost 25% very rapidly at the end of 2008. When did they change the FDIC insurance amount from $100,000 to $250,000? At that exact time when people are losing confidence because of a similar situation back then to what is happening in Cyprus today. Do you really believe that they have more money? Go look it up. As I said in my previous video, if you lack curiosity, that is a trait that if you lack will kill you, because you're not. Go research how much money the FDIC has. If one medium-sized bank in America goes bankrupt, the FDIC will probably be out of money. It doesn't matter. That guarantee means nothing. Your money is not safe. So this is exactly why Henry Ford said way back in, I think it was either late 1800s, somewhere around that time, or perhaps the mid 1800s, he said that if people understood, I'm not paraphrasing, it's not a direct quote, but it basically captures the essence of his statement. He said, if people truly understood the banking system, he said, I have no doubt there'd be revolution by tomorrow morning. Because of what I'm telling you, I've been trying to tell people this for years and years, and over 7 years now, that inflation is theft. So what is being proposed in Cyprus, even if it passes, is just a blip compared to the banker theft that has been occurring for decades and decades and decades. It is the exact same thing. So even if this doesn't pass, people should be outraged by the banker theft that is going on this year through inflation. No matter where you live in the world, people should be outraged. So how can you fight back? There is a solution. There is a solution. And here is the solution. The solution is to convert your fiat currency into silver or gold. Physical, not the GLD, not the SLV ETF, because the custodians of those are the corrupt banks of HSBC and JP Morgan. So if you trust them, you're a fool too. So you have to get physical silver and physical gold. Now, I can use the analogy of the US dollar today being 1/50th of the value. So the banker stole 49/50th of your savings account in the last 80 years through inflation if you hold US dollars. Now, if you had $20,000 in 1913 and you converted it into physical precious metals, like I tell you, let's just use the example of gold. Gold was $18.92 an ounce, and you can read all about it in another blog article I wrote recently. I'm going to post the link on YouTube in the video description below. If you had converted $20,000 in 1913 to gold, you would have basically at $18.92 an ounce, you have 1,057 ounces of gold. Now, 1,057 ounces of gold today priced at 1,580, right? 1,580, even though it's over $1,600 an ounce right now, would give you, if you were to convert it back to dollars, $1.7 million. Okay? That is how gold and silver will protect you. Because the reason that bankers, now you can go read my blog because I've written about this if you don't understand that the price is fraudulently set and bogus paper markets backed by nothing but air. But it will diverge. The physical price of gold and silver will diverge from the bogus spot price, the bogus price fixes in London, the AM price fix and the PM price fix, because they are bogus prices set for gold and silver by the bankers. But you have to understand that the reason they want to keep it down is the price of gold and silver down is because it keeps their bogus, fake, rubbish, fiat, Ponzi scheme going. Okay, so the way you can fight back is the more and more people that buy physical, or you don't even have to buy it, because if you have fiat currency savings, you should convert your money. Now, even before the Cyprus debacle happened, whether or not this goes through, I told people that if you can afford to do it, if you don't have the daily needs for a lot of liquid cash, you should convert 90% of your fiat savings account into physical gold and physical silver. Because with technology today, you can always liquidate it back into cash within 24 hours anytime you need it. So there's no reason ever to keep any money in fiat currency form. Because what that will do is, for people that convert, you know, you have some advisors that want to keep their clients' money in stocks. They say, oh, convert 5% of your money physical gold and physical silver. That is rubbish. With 5% helped you in Cyprus if this goes through. So, of course not. That would not have helped you. But what this will do, if you are angry about what the bankers are doing, you're angry about this theft, because this is the first time you realize inflation is theft, is if you buy physical gold and silver, you just convert your fiat currency to physical gold and physical silver. It will drive the prices higher. Now, what happens when the prices start going higher? When the price of silver goes to $50, it goes to $100, it goes to $200 an ounce, and when gold goes from $1,500 to $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 an ounce, is it exposes this scheme. It exposes inflation as theft. That's why the bankers don't want it to go higher, because it basically draws the curtain back on the wizard, and the wizards who are the central bankers that put up a fraudulent system that everyone uses, where everyone should be furious that we have a fraudulent, fake, counterfeit system of money. Now, the very last point I want to make is people are wondering, because this proposal came up Friday after market close, and is my belief that the IMF and the ECB want to spring this on the citizens of Cyprus on Monday. But what they found out is that there's a lot of black money, whatever you want to call it, underworld money from ex-KGB members of Russia and other Russian oligarchs that are rumored to have as much. There's some Russian individuals that are rumored, these oligarchs, to have as much as 10 billion, 50 billion, even 100 billion euros in some of these accounts in Cyprus. So they basically realized, you know, because every government is really a mafia, there's no government that works for the people, that they would be stealing from the Russian mafia. So this is the only reason that this might not go through. Now, the people of Cyprus, the Cyprus leaders never wanted this. It was being forced upon them by the IMF bankers, the EU, Germany's Merkel, the ECB, European Central Bank. But they realized the only thing that saved, or might potentially save, the people of Cyprus from this out and outright theft is the fact that there are powerful Russian oligarchs that the bankers are afraid to mess with. Because if they steal, can you imagine? They steal €1 billion
from some Russian oligarch that has 10 billion euros in a single account or multiple accounts in Cyprus banks, you don't think that Russian oligarch is going to hit back? What happens is you may be saved, the common people, by this bad, I guess you could call it dirty, because probably a lot of it probably is dirty money. These hundreds of billions of euros of dirty money owned by very powerful Russian men that are in these banks. But it is still not going to save you from the theft, as I explained, in inflation, which is far worse than what is being proposed in Cyprus right now. So people have been Cyprused to exponentially a greater extent than the citizens of Cyprus themselves. So understand that. And if you have understood that inflation is theft for the first time by watching this video, please spread the word. Please pass this on. Please, please, because this is not the last of that you'll hear of from situations like this going forward, of bankers taking any means necessary to steal your money. So you have to protect yourself by converting your worthless paper fiat money with zero intrinsic value into hard assets. Okay, thanks for watching. Please do comment and go below. Please do spread this video as well so people can understand that inflation is theft. Thanks for watching. Until next week, take care.